भी देखेंगे वो दिन के जिसका वादा है जो लोहे अज़ल में लिखा है जब जुल्म व सितम के कोहे गिरां रूई की तरह उड़ जाएंगे हम महकुमों के पांव तले जब धरती धड़ धड़ धड़केगी और अहले हकम के सर ऊपर जब बिजली कड़कड़ कड़केगी जब अर्ज़े खुदा के काबे से सब बुत उठवाए जाएंगे हम अहले सफ़ा मरदूद हरम मसनद पे बिठाए जाएंगे सब ताज उछाले जाएंगे सब तख्त गिराए जाएंगे बस नाम रहेगा अल्लाह का जो गायब भी है हाजिर भी जो मंजर भी है नाजिर भी उठेगा अनल हक का नारा जो मैं भी हूँ और तुम भी हो और राज करेगी खल्क खुदा जो मैं भी हूँ और तुम भी हो हम देखेंगे we will bear witness it is necessary that we will bear witness the day that has been promised that which was written onto the panel of eternity when the great mountains of oppression and tyranny are blown away like cotton. We, the unjustly judged, beneath our feet, the earth will forcefully shake and quake, and upon the heads of our rulers, lightning will rage and strike. From the Kaaba on Allah's earth, all the false idols will be displaced and destroyed. We, the people of justice, exiled from our holy places, will be seated where we belong. Every crown will be flung away. Every throne will collapse to the ground. The only name that will remain is that of Allah, He who is without a place but is present, He who is seen and oversees all. The cry of Ana al-Haq, I am the truth, will rise, which is me, but is also you. And the rule of Allah's creation will reign, which is me, but is also you. We will bear witness. It is necessary that we bear witness. That was a poem written in 1979 by the Pakistani poet Faiz Ahmed Faiz. And it was part of his 7th poetry collection, Mere Dil, Mere Musafir, My Heart, My Traveler, published in 1981. Faiz, of course, was one of the most important Urdu poets of the 20th century, and in my opinion, one of the most important Muslim poets of the 20th century as well. He started out life as a leftist and remained committed to those principles of justice and fighting oppression throughout his lifetime. And his poetry involved a lot of these Islamic motifs and imagery that you will have heard in the poem that I just recited. He had a lot of jobs throughout his lifetime. He was a journalist and a broadcaster at one point, as well as being a newspaper editor. And he spent a significant amount of time in jail in the 1950s for allegedly playing a part in attempting to overthrow Pakistan's leader at the time, Liaqat Ali Khan. As compared to many people who do spend time in jail, Faiz described his time in jail as falling in love again. He was later exiled to Beirut during the administration of the military dictator General Zia al-Haq, where he met, of course, and befriended the famous Palestinian poet Mahmoud Darwish. Now, coming to the technical aspects of the poem, Faiz was particularly famous for writing two types of poems, nazms and ghazals. This particular poem is a nazm. Maybe we'll read some ghazals later on during the week. And the nazm is a poetic style popular particularly in Urdu and in Sindhi poetry. It's very similar to what we would call in English free verse poetry. So it has very few kind of technical rules, but it typically does focus around a central theme or a feeling. So it doesn't really necessarily have to rhyme, and it doesn't necessarily have to follow a particular meter or a rhythm. But it does kind of need to focus on a particular theme or a feeling of the poet. It's very interesting as well. In Arabic, we refer to poetry as sha'r, which comes from the same root word as to feel, sha'ara. So this poem has two sources of inspiration, according to different literary critics. One of them is that Faiz wrote it, obviously it was written in 1979, and so another big thing that happened in 1979, of course, was the revolution in Iran. And some people argue that Faiz wrote it in praise of the revolution. Another more common view is that Faiz wrote it using Islamic images and metaphors to reclaim them from the dictator General Zia al-Haq, who claimed, of course, to be a very proud and strong Muslim leader. There was the slogan at the time, Mard Mu'min, Mard Haq, Zia al-Haq, Zia al-Haq. A man who is a mu'min, a man of truth, Zia al-Haq, Zia al-Haq. The original title of the poem, interestingly enough, was actually an Arabic phrase, which is وَيَبْقَ وَجْهُ رَبِّكَ, the face of your Lord remains. And so in kind of, writing this poem that's very steeped in these, very Islamic images and ideas, he's trying to kind of claim it back from the attempt to use Islam as a tool of authoritarianism and as a tool of oppression. A very interesting metaphor that I'll kind of focus on very briefly is the metaphor of, or rather the story of Ana al-Haq, which is a reference, of course, to the Persian Sufi Mansur al-Hallaj, who was killed for declaring Ana al-Haq in a public space. Now, Ana al-Haq has multiple meanings. It's an Arabic phrase. The first, of course, is I am the truth. And at the same time, we know that Haq, while it does mean truth, is also one of the names of Allah. And so Mansur al-Hallaj was actually killed and lynched for blasphemy, because a lot of people understood him saying, Ana al-Haq, I am the truth, as him declaring that he is, of course, Allah, astaghfirullah al-azim. But this is ironic, because al-Hallaj was known to be a pious man, and so why would he commit blasphemy? And so the way a lot of people actually interpret him saying that is that he meant Ana al-Haq, as in I've understood the truth, which is effectively him defeating his nafs. So Allah, creates us all with this internal enemy that we have to deal with, which is our nafs, our ego. And so in kind of knowing this existential truth, you have to kind of let your ego take a back seat, let your nafs take a back seat. And so that's what Al-Hallaj was declaring, was that he had reached the point where he was one with the truth. He was one with, the fact that his nafs is his internal enemy. And so that, I think, is kind of a really interesting and important image to spotlight. Now, this poem in more recent years has become a really important protest anthem, actually, in South Asia, in places where Urdu is spoken, in India and in Pakistan. So it kind of follows on really well, of course, from our discussion with Prof. Junaid. And as you can see, of course, there are many other elements of Islamic imagery in there as well. So, for example, he mentions how from the Kaaba on Allah's earth, all the false idols will be displaced and destroyed, and that we, the people of justice, are exiled from our holy places. And of course, this is particularly resonant because the vast majority of Muslims in the world today are actually unable to visit, one of our holiest sites, which is, of course, Masjid al-Aqsa in Jerusalem, which is under Israeli occupation. In fact, the people who live within just a few kilometers of Masjid al-Aqsa are exiled from it and unable to visit it. And so Faiz tells us that one day, inshallah, these false idols of states and of, capitalism and of colonial exploitation will be displaced and destroyed, and we will no longer be exiled from our holy places. And that the only name that will remain is that of Allah, who is our eternal ruler and our creator. And that, in order for us to achieve there, we will also reach the point where we defeat our nafs, as well as defeating, of course, our oppressors, because those two things are, of course, very intertwined things. You cannot achieve, kind of a spiritual final enlightenment, without, to some degree, acknowledging that, yes, we do have our nafs, but also, Allah has sent us with a responsibility to look after this earth and His creation. And so, as we say, the cry of I am the truth will rise, which is me, but also you. And of course, the rule of Allah's creation, in the sense that He has given us that responsibility to look after the dunya as part of, gaining our access to Jannah in the Akhirah, inshallah, is also part of that. which is me and also you, inshallah. And with that, we will take a break, after which we will be joined by our next guest. Thank you.